Jeff Rude is a writer for Golf Week magazine. They pulled up in a white van on the sand dunes up here, and I went to meet him, and Dave Senior got out, and he looked at me and he said, "Well, you remind me of Jockey Bill Shoemaker." One of the guys behind me said, "Well, we should just call you Shoe." And it stuck. A bet on a Shoemaker horse was almost a sure 10 or 20 cents.
Bob Gaspar was a retired teamster who had worked for the UPS and was working for a local carrier when, in the late 90s, he stumbled upon the development of a golf course on the gorse-choked Oregon coastline.
Local newspaper comes out once a week, picked it up. There was a front page article on a Chicago businessman named Mike Keiser that was going to do us an immense favor by building a golf course out on property that we thought was worthless. It was just a bunch of scrub brush, gorse, a few trees, and basically that was it.
As course designer David McClay Kidd was peeling back the potential of pure links, Shorty Dow, the caretaker of the land, led Shoe and a few others on a tour of the work in progress.
When I went up over the sand dunes, when I stepped out on that fairway, I turned to Rick, my friend, I said, "Man, I got to be a part of this somehow." It was absolutely beautiful.
They say Shoe was employee number 3, hired by Josh Lesnik of Kemper Sports, who was the first general manager of Bandon Dunes. There's nothing Shoe wouldn't do.
He said, "Can you caddy?" And I said, "God, absolutely." He said, "You've caddied before?" "Yeah, practically born on a golf course carrying a bag." Never done it in my life, but I figured, how hard can it be? Went out there, walked that back 9. When I got done, Josh gave me $30. And I thought, geez, are you kidding me? $30 for this walk in a park? I still have the 30. My wife bought me a really cool frame for it. It was a 20 and 2 5.
Back in the late 90s, Bandon, a town of 3,000, was anything but bustling. Fishing and the timber industries were suffering. What Mike Keiser did by building Bandon Dunes did a lot more than just serve Shoe and ultimately a lot of avid golfers.
It's really basically made the town come alive. Not only Bandon, but Coos County. Almost everybody in town and the county gets a check from Bandon Dunes. For one thing or another, newspapers, flowers, coffee. And that doesn't even take into consideration a payroll for 640 in staffers and then an additional 300 to 350 caddies that goes out into the community. Without this project here, I'm not sure where we'd be, because there's a little bit of tourism, but there wasn't much. I don't think there's a place like this, and I just don't think there is.
In June, Bandon opened a 5th 18-hole course to go along with multiple short courses and a putting course, making it one of the greatest collections of pure golf in the world. As time has gone on, Shoe's role at the resort has evolved into something much more than a handyman or caddy.
The day we opened, the car pulled up and the door opened and a foot came out, and before it hit the ground, they said, "What's the weather going to do today?" Everybody wants to know what the weather's going to do. So I started getting interested in the weather. So a combination of looking at a couple weather sites, reading some weather forecast discussions, and just purely stepping outside and taking a look around, I do a pretty good job of doing the weather. It was Mike Keiser once again who came up to me one day and he said, "Do you suppose you could get on Twitter and do the weather every morning?" And I didn't really know what Twitter was, and I said, "Well, yeah, sure." So I started doing tweets on the weather. I try to do it first thing in the morning, like early, 2, 3 in the morning, so East Coast people can get it right away. So I would give a scale of 0 to 10 on what the weather was the day before, just having fun with it. And it's just kind of grown, and I'm amazed to this day how many people walk by me. And what's the number today?
Weatherman, mega coordinator, mascot. We know he looks like a jockey, but besides the nickname of Shoe, what is this man's title?
Mike Keiser, he would introduce me. This is Shoe Gaspar, Director of Outside Happiness. And one day he introduced me, he says he even has cards, and I didn't.